Welcome back to the world according to Briggs and a video about taxes. Nobody likes them, but they're right up there with death, potholes, and bad internet service as one of life's unavoidable headaches. Every year, Uncle Sam and your state swoop in like seagulls at a beach picnic, snatching big chunks of your paycheck before you can even smell it. In 2025, Wallet Hub crunched the numbers and found that the average American hands over about 10% of their income to property, income obviously, and sales taxes. But here's the kicker. Some states only take about half of that. That's right, while you're in California donating plasma and gold fillings just to cover your property tax bill, people in other states are practically high-fiving their accountants and giving their bank tellers inappropriately long hugs. Today, we're counting down the 10 states with the lowest overall tax burdens, how they keep it that way, and why you might want to start looking at Zillow listings before your next paycheck disappears. Stick around, this is going to get interesting and probably make you question why you're still living where you are. Got it? Get it? Good. Let's take a look. Number 10, Idaho. Idaho kicks off our list with a total tax burden of about 7.5% of personal income. On paper, the gem state doesn't really look like a tax haven. It imposes a flat income tax of roughly 5.7% and a 6% sales tax. So right there, you're all, hey, they're charging these things. They're sticking it to me. Here's the thing. Those taxes are applied evenly and kept relatively low. The Tax Foundation notes that the state's property tax rate is modest at just 0.47%. So that's not bad at all. Idaho also doesn't tax estate or inheritance, so family wealth can be passed on without the state taking their cut. What keeps Idaho's overall burden low is balance. The state broadens its tax base by levying moderate rates on income, consumption, and property rather than leaning heavily on one category. And it keeps administrative costs down too. Lawmakers recently cut the individual and the corporate tax rate from 5.8% to 5.69% and have kept gas tax and other fees modest. Idahoans pay about $4,541 per capita in state and local taxes, a figure that is lower than most of the neighboring states, which they're next to Oregon and they're next to Washington, and those people love their taxes, like a sailor loves his rum. In short, the state's conservative budgeting and diversified revenue sources let it provide core services without hitting residents right in the pants. Like some states like New Jersey, California, Washington, New York. The total tax burden here, like I said, is 7.54%. Number 9, Oklahoma. At number 9 is Oklahoma, where the total tax burden hovers just above 7%. The state doesn't shy away from taxing income. Personal tax rates range from 0.25% to around 5%. But it makes up for that with relatively low property taxes and a modest average sales tax burden. The top rate on corporate income is a flat 4%, so it's not really fluctuating. That's one of the lowest in the country, by the way. So what's Oklahoma's secret weapon? They stick it to the energy sector. Oh boy, do they. Severance taxes on oil and natural gas extraction account for nearly 13% of the state's tax revenue as of 2024. Those payments from drillers, frackers subsidize the state government, letting lawmakers keep income and property taxes low for everyone else. The arrangement isn't perfect. Energy revenues are notoriously volatile, and the state has occasionally faced budget shortfalls because of that. But for now, Oklahomans enjoy a comparatively light tax load and a cost of living that looks very attractive next to neighboring Texas and Colorado. The total tax burden, 7.01%. Not bad. Now, to keep one thing in mind, some of the states in this country, they're over 13%. Number 8, North Dakota. North Dakota makes an appearance thanks in part to its on-again, off-again oil boom. Residents pay about 6.6% of their income in state and local taxes, which is not bad. It's like half of what some of the other states have. That's accomplished by keeping income tax rates low and top marginal rate about 2.5%, one of the lowest in the country. Sales taxes are moderate, and there's no tax on real estate transfers, no capital stock tax, and no estate or inheritance tax. So they're missing a lot of them that some some of the other states really like sticking it to you with. The state leans heavily on taxes from the energy sector, which funnel billions into public coffers. Revenue from oil extraction has allowed the government to build infrastructure and save into the legacy fund while sparing residents from steep tax hikes. North Dakota's property taxes are lower than many Midwestern states, and with a population under 1 million, the cost of government can be spread thin. I mean, they don't have a lot of people, they don't have a lot of services. That's one of the biggest reasons states like New York and California have such high tax rates, because they got a lot of people they got to deal with, and a lot of infrastructure needs to be built for all those people. So when you have hardly anyone living there, you don't need a lot of taxes. And one thing, if some of these states were to raise their taxes a little bit, they might not need California, Massachusetts, Washington, and New York to pay their bills all the time, which is sort of what they do. North Dakota, like other energy states, has the downside that's it's volatile. When oil prices fall, budgets tighten. But for now, North Dakotans benefit from a tax code that rewards productivity and keeps the overall burden in check. Total tax burden in North Dakota is 6.61%. Not bad. Number 7, Delaware, where everyone goes to incorporate their business. Delaware has long punched above its weight class as a corporate haven, and that helps puts it here at number 7. Residents face a progressive income tax that tops out at 6.6% and a corporate tax of 8.7%. But the state has no sales tax, and its property taxes are among the lowest in the country at about 0.48%. That is not bad. Delaware also refrains from levying estate or inheritance taxes. The result is a total tax burden of only about 6.5%. That's not bad at all. Delaware is kind of known for that. And how does the first state afford all this? Incorporation fees and franchise taxes. That's pretty much it. Spotlight Delaware reports that corporate franchise taxes and foundation fees bring in more than $1.33 billion annually, while unclaimed property revenue adds another windfall for them. Delaware also levies a gross receipt tax, a type of hidden sales tax on business. These revenue streams mean that the hundreds of thousands of corporate registrations in Wilmington are effectively paying for the state's roads, schools, police, and sparing individual taxpayers from heavy sales tax and things like that, You go in to buy something, government man comes in, flips you upside down, starts going through your pockets. Nobody needs that. They don't do that in Delaware. It's a model built on corporate law enterprise and creative revenue collection, and it works remarkably well. Their total tax burden is only 6.52%. I mean, it's not a conservative state either, which is weird to see it on a list like this. Right away, you think if it's a liberal or a Democrat state, it's going to have high taxes. Not Delaware. Number 6, Florida. Floridians love to brag about living in one of the few states with no individual income tax, and for good reason. The absence of income tax is the main reason the Sunshine State's total tax burden is under 6.5%. Instead of income tax, Florida relies on 6% state sales tax, about 7% when you figure in all the local options, and 5.5% in corporate income tax. Property taxes are moderate at about 0.71%. There's no estate tax and there's no inheritance tax. So if like your grandparents or your parents are millionaires and you're broke, suggest they move to Florida really soon. Then you follow them there to take care of them. Tourism does a lot of heavy lifting here. Millions of visitors buy theme park tickets, rent cars, and dine out, feeding the state's sales tax coffers. Florida also leans on property taxes and fees to fund local governments and schools. The absence of a state tax makes the state especially attractive to retirees looking to preserve their wealth. I don't understand that. When I die, I don't care what happens to my money. I'm dead. If my family can figure out a way to get it, wrestle it from the government, that's on them. But in essence, Florida exports much of its tax burden to tourists and corporations while letting residents enjoy the beach and the sunshine with minimal income tax bills. Yeah, Florida's got a lot going for it when it comes to those things. Hey, they've got some problems right now, and there's a lot in the news that people aren't happy with the local government. But when that tax bill comes around, you kind of like your government. The total tax burden in Florida is 6.49%. Number 5, South Dakota. South Dakota might be better known for Mount Rushmore than it is for its tax policy, but perhaps it should be known for both. The state levies no personal income tax, no corporate income tax, no personal property tax, or business inventory tax. And along with that, no estate or inheritance taxes. Where are they getting their money? I'm going to tell you. Its state sales tax is about 4.2%, but that averages out to about 6.11% when, the local cities start adding their taxes and stuff like that. And property tax rate is about 1%. Those features produce an overall tax burden of only 6.5%, putting South Dakota at number 5 on this list. So what keeps the lights on? The state relies on broad-based sales and property taxes. Local governments levy a 1% to 3% property tax on real estate, and the sales tax applies to most goods and services, so they get creative. South Dakota's also got a small population, which means they can have a lean government, and that helps them not have to tax people so much. They also take a lot from the federal government to keep the lights on. Again, that's coming from places like Massachusetts, New York, California, Washington. They're all putting more money in, and states like South Dakota, Kentucky, they're taking more than they're putting in. So, yeah. So some states have really high taxes, and, next time you go someplace and, the streets being repaved in Kentucky, call up a Californian and thank them for their taxes. Policymakers also tout the absence of an inventory and inheritance tax as a selling point for businesses and retirees alike. I don't know how many retirees are moving up to South Dakota, but they are drawing new residents, thus widening their tax base. If you don't mind cold winters and prairie lifestyle, this is about as tax-friendly as it gets. The total tax burden in South Dakota is 6.46%. Not bad. Number 4, Tennessee. Tennessee takes 4th place with its total tax burden of about 6.38%. The volunteer state is one of the 8 that impose no broad personal income tax. The last remnant of its haul of tax on interest and dividends was phased out in 2021. Instead, Tennessee collects a 7% state sales tax with additional local things. It's about 9.55, which is pretty high. Levies a 6.5% corporate income tax and gross receipt tax, and maintains a property tax of 0.48%. Tennessee's strategy is to tax spending instead of earnings. By forging an income tax, the state encourages work and investment, but it makes up for lost revenues with some of the highest sales taxes in the nation. Visitors who spend money on country music tours and barbecues indirectly help fund schools and roads here. Property taxes remain moderate, while high sales tax can pinch lower income residents. The combination of no income tax and reasonable property tax rates keeps Tennessee firmly in the low burden camp. The total tax burden here is 6.38%. Maybe if they charge more taxes, they can hire more police for Memphis, and then the National Guard won't have to come in. Knowing the stats and everything like that, I keep hearing they're going to send the National Guard to this state, this city, and all that other stuff to bring down the crime rates. Memphis is the one that should have been first on the list. That place is a nightmare. New Hampshire is a quirky outlier in New England. The Granite State has no sales tax, no broad personal income tax. Instead, it charges a 3% income tax on interest and dividend income and a 7.5% corporate income tax. Property taxes, however, are steep. Local governments raise much of their revenue through property levies that equal about 1.61% of personal income. But because there's almost no sales tax burden, residents' total tax bill still comes in just under 6%. Not bad. The absence of a general sales tax distinguished New Hampshire from its neighbors. Like I said, New England states love their taxes, not New Hampshire. Consumers drive across the border from Massachusetts and Maine to buy furniture, liquor, and big-ticket items tax-free, bolstering business revenues and offsetting the need for other taxes. By relying on property taxes to fund schools and municipal services, the state keeps state-level bureaucracy smaller. The 3% tax on investment income is limited in scope and thus doesn't discourage earned income or entrepreneurship. For retirees living off dividends, this structure is attractive enough to offset those high property taxes, which they are high there. The total tax burden in New Hampshire is 5.94%. Now, have the same thing that we have here in Oregon. People come across the border from Idaho, California, and Washington to buy things because we have no sales tax here. I got my son a computer, just a quick laptop for just some work on Amazon. And normally Amazon doesn't charge me a tax because we don't have it. And then I sent it to his house in California. It went up by like 11%. I was like, ooh, maybe I'll just ship it to him. Number 2, Wyoming. Wyoming lands at number 2 because it essentially refuses to tax income. There's no individual or corporate income tax. Instead, the state levies a 4% sales tax, which gets up to about 5.44 on average when you count the local stuff, and a property tax rate of about 0.55%. Wyoming ranks first on the Tax Foundation's State Business Tax Climate Index and collects roughly $5,194 in taxes per capita. Its low taxes extend to estate and inheritance, which aren't taxed at all here. All that, you'd think Wyoming would start growing because they are a very affordable place to live. It's just got too much open space and their cities are way too small, so you're only attracting a certain portion of the population. Like Oklahoma and North Dakota, Wyoming funds much of its government through severance taxes on coal, oil, and natural gas. Wyoming history notes that the state is one of just 7 that shuns individual income taxes, relying instead on mineral revenues. The energy boom of the 1970s made this model possible, and it continues to today. Again, it's very volatile because that's how the energy sectors work. Wyoming's small population, lean government, and trust funds built from past mineral wealth allow it to maintain roads, schools, and public services without turning to residents for more money. They don't treat their residents like ATM machines, like California and New Jersey, just running that down your butt crack, a little card, getting money out of you. When energy markets slump, the state feels the pinch, but with vast reserves still in the ground, residents continue to enjoy some of the lightest taxes in the country, which is not bad. That's one of those states I've thought about going to just because of the taxes. Wyoming's total tax burden is 5.79%. Not bad. All right, before we get to number 1, if you're thinking about moving to one of these states or any state in the country, there's a link in the description area for a website called Home and Money. They've got all kinds of tools to help you find property and with your whole home buying journey. They can also get you in touch with a real estate agent anywhere in the country. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, Alaska. The reigning champion of low taxes is Alaska, where residents pay less than 5% of their income to state and local governments. Alaska has no state income tax and no statewide sales tax. The average combined local sales tax is just 1.82%, and property taxes amount to about 1.07%. The state does levy a graduated corporate income tax that can reach 9.4%. which is kind of high. But that burden falls largely on business and is partly offset by generous deductions. So how can the last frontier afford such generosity? Oil money. Since the discovery of oil in the 1960s, Alaska has financed government services through severance taxes and royalties on oil and gas extraction. The proceeds have built the Alaska Permanent Fund, which not only pays for schools and infrastructure, but sends cheddar cheese to the locals. Yeah, that's right. They get a check every year. It varies. My friend's dad's lived up there for 20 years, and he said sometimes like $600 and sometimes all the way up to close to 2,000. I don't think it's made over 2,000. I could be wrong, but I think he said the best he got some years back was like $1,600. Who knows? You're getting money from the state, right? Local governments do impose small sales taxes and rely on property taxes to fund services. Without a sales tax or income tax, Alaska's cost of living is still high due to its geography, like we talked about in other videos. Everything's got to be shipped there. But when it comes to taxes, the state gives its residents a break few others can match. Their total tax burden is 4.93%. Not bad. So yeah, if you're looking for a state because your taxes are gouging you, look at these 10. They're pretty good options. I think out of all of them, I'd go to Wyoming or New Hampshire myself. I don't think I could do Alaska. It'd be too much. All right, everyone. Have a great day. Be nice to each other.